I'm Chewy Mew, and welcome to my channel, where today we're going to be taking a look at the ToyBiz The Amazing Spider-Man Super Strength Spider-Man from the Amazing Spider-Man wave. I don't have his packaging, though, but I do have packaging from a Spider-Man Classic Secret Identity Spider-Man, and the packaging was basically the same, except this was ToyBiz basically just rebranding the Spider-Man Classics figures to The Amazing Spider-Man, and we got this figure as the main superposable figure from that series. We're going to go to my desk now. We're going to take a full-on look at this figure. But really quick, it's really hot. I can't see and I can't breathe. But let's do this. Why be easy when you can just die? The accessories this guy comes with, like I said, I don't have them. Comes with some sort of gimmick that shows his super strength. And I can't really tell what this is supposed to be. I can't tell if this looks like some sort of laboratory equipment that falls on top of him or some kind of building. I can't really tell. But it's supposed to be debris that has little clips where you clip them onto his wrist. So he's supposed to be holding them. And then it has a button that you flick on the back, and it looks like he's throwing the pieces off of his body. Now, just due to the way they're designed, when you flick the button, he's not going to actually throw them off of his body. If you're seeing an image of him throwing them, and he's like basically mid-throwing them, you know what I mean? This figure being pretty expensive on eBay, even without the accessories. I don't want to pay like $40 to $50 for this guy with all of his accessories. And honestly, if you're to get this guy cheap, I don't think you'd mind either, because the actual figure here is pretty solid. It's one of your Spider-Man figures with more squinty looking eyes. The eyes are painted pretty nicely. The black outline is done good. And unfortunately mine, I don't know if it's, because this is used, like I said, I got it at a thrift store. So it has like some whiteness there on the web lines. Also mine does unfortunately have some like scratches on the back of his head. There's a spider logo on the chest. And this is one of those logos where it doesn't just have web lines going through it. You can see the web lines aren't going through it. There's just one web line here that goes to that side that goes through the middle. Spider logo on the back is pretty big. I'm kind of a sucker for big Spider-Man logos. Like Web Canyon Spider-Man has a huge logo that covers his whole back. This logo looks pretty nice. You can see it's a light colored red, and the legs have a sort of darker kind of wash look to them. Speaking of wash, this figure, the entirety of the red sections are painted with a wash. ToyBiz didn't have the machine just paint the web lines in very precisely. They just added a wash here, which looks nice on the head. This arm does look a little bit darker due to the wash. The boots there also are done with the wash style painting. It looks good considering how dark the blue is. The blue is just a deep navy, and it looks really good with the dark red and dark blue. You can kind of see it on his inner arms here. He has like a sort of black or maybe a super dark blue shading to it. It looks pretty nice. I like the way it looks. You got some more here on the ribs. Also looks nice. Like I said, it has some shading here on the blue section, or on the spider legs, which also looks nice. Shading there on the butt, which also, his butt has a very defined crack. It's shaped like a Y. You can see like it looks like a Y, which that's kind of weird. Some more shading here on the waist section. On the outside of the thigh here, you can see the shading there as well. On this side, you can see it on there on the inside as well. On the inside there as well. On the back parts of the legs. It looks pretty nice. The shading on this, the paint is done pretty good. I feel like all the paint on it and the colors just blend in together. It's just a very nicely done Spider-Man costume, you know? So the costume itself, I like the way the costume looks. As far as the like sculpting to it, I've already gone over like the head sculpt. And the arms, you can see the muscles in there, bulging biceps and triceps, or triceps and biceps, I should say. You can see he's got a bit of a six-pack. It's not the most noticeable. You can see he's definitely got some muscle definition if we move it like that. Rib muscles here, he's got pretty big pectorals, which look pretty good. Like I said, very defined butt. You got back muscles here. I feel like my camera is not moving in 60 FPS. That's kind of strange. He's got big thigh muscles here as well. Very noticeable. That's pretty cool. And also another thing to note is it says the date on the back of his leg here. 2006 Marvel Entertainment, ToyBiz Worldwide, 2006, made in China. Instead of saying it on the bottom of the feet, which, by the way, on the bottom of the feet, he has peg holes, which you could clip onto basically any ToyBiz base, like Sinister Spider-Man here. The way they sculpted the back part, it looks like it has like a big cut that would work for a butterfly joint. It's not quite the same cut as, for example, Web Canyon Spider-Man, but you can see it still has plastic cut so it can go back like this. And I feel like they might have done it, then they just didn't. I don't know, but I'm kind of glad there's no butterfly joints, because I feel like the sculpt for the chest looks really nice. Another thing to note here, which it's not really an issue, is that his shoulders are pinned. I mean, it could be an issue for some people, because it turns out a lot of people these days hate pins as if it's like the worst thing ever. And he does have pins. I think that might have to do with the gimmick, just due to the way they did the gimmick. He also does have sculpted web lines up here, which look nice. They are red plastic, and on the underside, they're painted blue so they don't stick out, which is pretty cool. These pins were painted blue because they're made in red, and the paint is kind of coming off a little bit. Same thing here, which it's kind of dumb that for these joints, ToyBiz used a red hinge here, and then the red pins, and they painted them blue. I can't talk, you know what I mean. And they could have just used blue plastic for these, and they wouldn't have to paint it at all. Another issue, you see I keep adjusting the knees here, and that's because these knees are not the same sculpt. You can see this one is a much smaller knee, and this one's thicker and fatter, and it fits in with the sculpt of the knee. It's just, I don't know why, the knee joints are differently shaped. So when you have him standing, that's him standing up straight, but unfortunately, he stands a little bit lopsided this direction just because this knee joint it's kind of gummy. Like, I don't know why they didn't just use the same knee joint on both sides. It looks kind of weird, but overall I think it just looks pretty good. I like the way the design of his costume, the musculature on it looks good. It's painted well. The details on it are overall pretty good, I would say. This is the Quick Change Spider-Man that's also part of the Amazing Spider-Man wave of figures. And the head sculpt, I'm not too sure which one came first, but you can see the head sculpts look incredibly similar. I don't know if they took this head sculpt and then they added articulation for this, or they took this one, removed the articulation, and made it for the gimmick. So next, let's go over the articulation for this guy. So the head looks down pretty much all the way. It looks up about that high, and you could force it a little more, and he still can't look all the way straight up, which is kind of unfortunate. The head rotates all the way around, the arms rotate all the way around, and like I said, due to the gimmick, they're loose. They're not loose like floppy like my first ever Spider-Man figure where they're just gonna like flop around like this, but they're also not super tight, which is kind of fine because they're not going to droop down. The arms go up that high, which is pretty good. Rotation here in the bicep. Get a double bend in the elbow that is pretty much perfect range. You get a rotation here in his glove and a wrist hinge that is very good range. Along that combined with the finger hinges, you can move them and you can get him to his web shooting pose. He goes forward that much, which is fine. It could be better, but it's decent. Going back is terrible because that's neutral. That's back, and you could hear it's very ratcheted, which it will help it from getting loose, or it'll keep it from getting loose, but the range on it's just kind of bad. Rotation here in the waist. The legs go back pretty far, actually, so that's pretty impressive. They go forward that much, which kind of sucks, but if you rotate his foot at an angle and you rotate the boot, it looks like it's kicking all the way up, and it has pretty good range there. Rotation here in the thigh, and you get a double bend in the knee, which you can also do full-on splits, which I forgot to mention, so you do full-on splits as well, so that's nice. And then the double-jointed knees, like I said, they are sculpted differently, or they're just the same, different knees. They're not symmetrical, but both of them get pretty much identical range. This one gets slightly more range, but both of them are honestly pretty much as good as you can get. Rotation here in the boot. The ankle goes all the way forward, all the way back. You have ankle pivots, which allow him to spread his legs about that far. The toe goes all the way forward, or all the way up technically, it's not forward. I can't talk anymore. And you can get him to balance on his toes. I'm going to do a shake test. And I'm shaking my desk. Look at these guys, how they shake. And yeah, if you shake the desk like crazy, he's going to fall down. But if you just have him on a shelf like this, he's probably not going to fall down. And so articulation on this guy, I think the best way to sum this up is good enough. I would say from like the shoulder swivel until the fingers is basically perfect. From the waist to the toes is also perfect. It's just the neck range is kind of bad. So if you can't get this guy into a super dynamic crouch pose, considering how bad the ab crunch is as well. But I would say everything else is basically perfect ToyBiz. But ultimately, you're not going to get this guy into super dynamic poses compared to like Sinister Six Spider-Man or McFarlane or Snapshot or any of those other super articulated ToyBiz figures. I would say you could play around with this guy, get him in some nice poses, but like I said, nothing too crazy dynamic, contortionist kind of Spider-Man like people are used to with Spider-Man. So yeah, there's articulation. So here he is standing next to some other Spider-Man figures. We got Sinister Six Spider-Man, Snapshot, Spider-Man Classic Series 1 Spider-Man, and Fearsome Foes Spider-Man. And here he's next to the villains I have from the Amazing Spider-Man wave. We've got Sandman, Symbiote Blast, Venom, Hobgoblin, and Electro. And for the Hasbro collectors, this is about as good as I can do. We've got Tombstone, the Build-A-Figure Lizard, Hydro Man, and we've got the Hasbro repaint of the ToyBiz McFarlane Spider-Man. So yeah, that's pretty much all for the Super Strength Spider-Man. I do like it, you know, the color scheme on it. The articulation is a bit on the bad side, but it's honestly still good enough. You get this guy in some pretty decent poses. I do like it though, and I hope you guys like this kind of video with a little bit more editing and you see me in it and stuff. But yeah, let me know what you think about this figure. If you liked the video, you know, let me know. And I'll see you guys in the next review. Wow.